Okay, so now we'll go to the Alter Shulchan Aruch. We're going to go to chapter 475, Tuf Ayin A. And as I mentioned, we're going to back up a little bit because there's a few halachas that we were remiss to learn at the time, which is related to the Karpas Marrar link. So what we did learn in the Alter Shulchan Aruch is the question of linking the bracha ha'adama from your Karpas to your Marrar. We learned the different opinions. Two different opinions. Does the Haggadah constitute an interruption, and therefore the Hadama on your Karpas will not cover your Maror? And therefore, if you ate more than a kazayas of Karpas, you'd have to make a bracha achrayna. You'd have to do a burn the nefashos. And when it comes to the Maror, you don't make Hadama because it's covered by the matzah, right? Because it's part of the meal. Or do I say the Haggadah does not constitute an interruption? Your Maror is not covered by your matzah. And by making Hadama at the Karpas, you have in mind the Maror, and that covers the Maror, because the Haggadah does not constitute an interruption. And therefore, to satisfy all views, we eat less than a kazayas at the Karpas, because anyways, the whole point of the Karpas is not the consumption, but only the curiosity from the children, and that's enough if you have less than a Karpas, less than a kazayas. And therefore, everybody agrees, no bracha achrayna. You have in mind the Maror, and then your Maror is covered for Adama, either by option A, because you covered it by making Adama at Karpas, or option B, by the Hamoitzi, it's covered already. That's what we learned. What we didn't learn, which the Gemara did reference, is what about the bracha of mitzvah? When it comes to eating the Maror, you have the bracha Adama. It's one bracha because you're eating a vegetable. The birchas hanen, the bracha of enjoying food, you have to make a bracha Adama. Okay, so that's either covered by the Adama of Karpas or by the matzah, because it's part of your meal. What about the bracha? Then there's the second bracha, which is berachas mitzvahs. You're doing a mitzvah now of eating maror, and therefore you say, "Asher kedushanim mitzvahs." Thank you, Hashem, for commanding us to eat maror. Good. Now the Gemara discussed the scenario in which the only vegetable a person has available is the kind of vegetable with which you would fulfill the maror. You only have lettuce, let's say. You're required to dip twice, as per the instruction, to raise curiosity. So, in dipping one, you're left with no choice but to dip their lettuce. So do you make asher kedushanim mitzvahs halachas maror then? And that came down to the question of, do mitzvahs require intentionality? Do mitzvahs require intentionality? If mitzvahs require intentionality, then when I dip the first time and I'm just doing it for the sake of curiosity, then there's no achilas maror there, the mitzvah of achilas maror. And if when I eat maror the second time, even if I don't have to make adama, I still have to make al achilas maror because now I'm having a mind to do the mitzvah. But if, and this is the halachic ruling, as far as rabbinic mitzvahs go, which maror today is a rabbinic mitzvah, that you do not require intentionality. Just by doing it, you fulfill the mitzvah, even if you had no intention to do the mitzvah. Then, when I eat maror the first time, I will have at least somewhat, I will have done the mitzvah of eating maror, which would mean I should make al achilas maror when I dip the first time, right?
Yeah, the first time. Yeah,
first time. What if I'm eating less than a kazayas the first time? That's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is only when I eat a full kazayas. Should I make al achilas maror then? I'm eating less than the kazayas because I'm worried about the hadama ma'isa, which I just finished explaining. But all I have is lettuce, which means just by eating it, I fulfill the mitzvah, even without intention. Should I make al achilas maror before karpas if I'm using lettuce? It's a good question. This is what we're going to address now. These halachas. Okay, so let's see. Sorry?
the mitzvah.
Are we clear on the conundrum?
The mitzvah bracha.
Yeah.
It's not contingent on whether or not you eat, how much you eat of it. Is it?
Let's see. This is the question I'm posing. But we'll see how everyone's going to address that. But this is the question I'm posing.
Yeah.
In other words,
it conditions the
should
bracha krona, but it doesn't.
Right, but if I eat less than a kazayas, I don't do the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to eat the mitzvah of maror is the injunction to raise curiosity from the children is enough without a kazayas. But the
No,
injunction to
yeah.
eat maror requires a kazayas. So
Okay.
if all I have is lettuce, so if I'm using lettuce for karpas, but I'm eating less than a kazayas because of the hadama issue, should I be making alachilas maror my maror that I eat at karpas? All that's going to be addressed now in halacha 22 and 23 and 24, and then 25 is going to get to the question of swallowing matzah. We learned the halachas actually of 21 already, and 20 and 19, that's the halachas of Korach. You see, as we go through the Gemara, we're slowly learning all the sections of the Shulchan Aruch out of order because the Gemara is not in order. But because halachas sometimes get split up, like it does here. For example, Hadama is in one set of halachas when we discuss karpas, and the halachas of halachilas maror comes here. But in the Gemara, they come together. Okay, so they get split up already differently, but over time, we're going to end up learning all the halachas. That's the point. So let's see. Halacha 22. Someone who has no vegetables to be eating when he's supposed to dip, before he reads the Agada. In other words, at karpas. He has no vegetable, except for the kind of vegetables with which you would fulfill your mitzvah maror. So all I have is horseradish, all I have is lettuce. I only have the kind of vegetable that you would that qualify for maror. Okay? So we established in the Gemara that because this is a rabbinic mitzvah, ein tzrichis kavana. You don't need intentionality. And therefore, just by eating it, you'll fulfill your mitzvah. And therefore, yivarech aleim alachilas maror. You have to make alachilas maror. When you dip it in salt water or vinegar, before eating the agada. Right? You have to make a chilas maror. Now, to our question. If I just made alachilas maror, because I know, even lack my intentionality or not, by the very fact that I'm eating the maror, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of maror, which is why I'm making alachilas maror. So should that compel me to make a kazayas? So that I actually do the mitzvah, because I just made a bracha on it? Yeah? Says the Alter Rebbe, Ve'ein tzarech lechem behem kazayas. I don't need to make a kazayas. I don't need to eat a kazayas. I don't need to. Va'achar kach, and afterwards, after having eaten the matzah, so I made alachilas maror. I made hadama, I made alachilas maror, I dipped my lettuce in salt water, ate less than a kazayas, read the entire Haggadah, washed my hands, made hamoitzi, made alachilas maror, and made alachilas matzah, and ate my matzah. Yeah? And now I actually have to fulfill the mitzvah maror, because I haven't fulfilled the mitzvah maror yet. Even though I made the bracha on maror, I haven't fulfilled the mitzvah because I didn't need a kazayas. Yeah? Says Alter Rebbe, now after at this point, I'm holding after matzah now. Yeah, following the scenario?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry?
I think I'm following.
Yeah.
In other words, at the moment he made the bracha for
Alachilas matzah, maror, by karpas.
He doesn't need to have eaten a kazayas at that point.
Right. Even though, so which means I made alachilas maror, but haven't yet fulfilled my mitzvah of maror. I didn't need kazayas.
You didn't eat kazayas.
Right, but I made that bracha because I'm stuck with eating the vegetable that I would be yotze the mitzvah of maror. So how does that work? It explains. So I'm at karpas. All I have is lettuce. I dip it into salt water and vinegar, which, by the way, just in parentheses, it's interesting that he's telling you to dip it in salt water and vinegar, because as per the Alter Rebbe, we do not dip charoises by the first dipping, by the karpas, right? Rambam says you do use charoises by the karpas, as the Gemara actually implied, because the Gemara implied if you're using lettuce for your karpas, you should dip it into charoises because you have to get rid of kappa, you got to get rid of the poison, right? But today we don't have that poison, so I'm dipping it in salt water and vinegar, and it's fine, because the point is I'm dipping for the curiosity, right? On Shabbos, we're going to discuss the charoises that we dip at the mitzvah of maror and what that means if we have no sickness today in maror. Why are we dipping by the second time charoises? We'll get to that on Shabbos. Shabbos 15, we're going to address that. This is just in closed brackets. So where am I? I have only lettuce. I'm at karpas. I dip it in salt water. I made a bracha alachilas adama for sure, and I made alachilas maror. But I ate less than a kazayas because I don't want to run into the trouble of making a bracha chayna. Okay, so now what do? It's now after Haggadah. It's now after I washed, after I have matzah. Now, yat b'kazayis mar b'charoises. Now you actually dip a full kazayis of your lettuce into charoises. V'yechlena b'lei bracha. And eat it without a bracha. No bracha, not hadama. For sure, that's covered. Not even alachilas maror.
You did that already.
She'i efshel levarach alachilas maror zu. I cannot make on this eating asher k'shon v'titzvon alachilas maror.
You did that already.
I cannot, exactly. Because I already ate some of it earlier. I already made the bracha on that which I ate earlier. So I cannot make al achilas maror now. Okay? What about the interruption? There's long interruption. I made al achilas maror. Ate less than a kazayas of lettuce or of horseradish, whatever else, whatever the maror item I'm eating is. One of the 5 species that qualify as maror, which we'll learn about in the Gemara. Right? And then I read the whole Haggadah, and then I washed, and I made a moitzi. Massive interruption. Says the Alter in the second paragraph of Halacha 22. The av shemavs nekarbe, even though there's a big interruption, bein birchas achilas maror, between the bracha that I recited, thank you for the mitzvah of maror, which I did by karpas, le'akazais maror shoich lachar matzah, between that and the actual full olive-sized portion of maror that I'm eating now after matzah for the mitzvah, ein bekach klum, no concern here. Why? Kivin shemiyad acher habracha, because right after I made the bracha al achilas maror at karpas, tama atma maror, I tasted a little bit of the maror. And the primary is taste. Mitzvah. I began the mitzvah. And there's no interruption between the bracha and the beginning of the mitzvah, which is the main concern. The main concern is not an interruption between the bracha and having concluded the mitzvah. The main concern is interruption between the bracha and having begun the mitzvah. Example for this is searching the house for chametz. We spoke about this a couple of years ago. Big chiddush in the Rebbe's Haggadah, and it's on YouTube somewhere. But basically, you make a bracha before you start searching for the chametz. At night, 13. What's the bracha you make? Thank you, Hashem, for the mitzvah of what? Not searching chametz, but thank you for the mitzvah of destroying the chametz. But I don't destroy the chametz till later. So explain that about Haggadah, because you began the mitzvah now. The search itself is not about finding chametz, it's about destroying it. I'm in the search to get rid of the chametz. Even though it's going to extend, first of all, till later at the end of the search when I actually make the declaration rendering all my chametz ownerless, nullified. And then the next morning when I do it again, I actually burn. Right? But because there's no massive interruption, but because there's no interruption between the bracha and the beginning of the mitzvah, it's okay. Same thing here. It says in the footnote to look at subsection 8. Let's see what it says there.
You began
the mitzvah of maror at your karpas.
So that doesn't matter if there's an interruption.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar thing with the matzah. He says earlier here, the same thing is true of matzah.
Does that work with meals though? Remember we learned this whole thing about you do a multi, you're eating in a room and then you leave.
So over there, it's a
berachas.
Okay, so there it's a question of berachas hanenin, right? It's a question of bracha of enjoying, and it's a different set of rules. And over there, it's a question of the bracha acharna. Are you still in the same meal or not? But here, so long as you made the no interruption between the bracha and the beginning of the mitzvah, you're fine.
For bracha's mitzvah.
Brachas are mitzvahs. Yeah. Okay. Now, what happens if at the time of the karpas, where I use lettuce and I dipped in salt water, and now I ate a kazayas, which means I did fulfill the mitzvah, even though I didn't intend to. Doesn't matter. No intention required when it comes to rabbinic mitzvahs. So I ate a full kazayas at karpas of maror. I shouldn't have, but I did. Do I have to not eat maror again at matzah? Says that Rabbi, yes. Let's see, why is that?
What about your bracha for Adamah?
Okay, so you made the mistake, which we learned already before. We learned before that you shouldn't have eaten more than a kazayas, because if you eat more than a kazayas, you run into the question about one opinion which says you should make a bracha acharna. But in the end, we don't make a bracha acharna if you by mistake did that, because it's a suffix, it's a doubt. Because the other opinion says you don't make a bracha acharna because it extends to your maror later, right? So because you're in doubt, therefore you don't make a bracha acharna after that full kazayas. That we established already. Even though there is one opinion which says you should be making a bracha acharna after you ate a full kazayas of karpas, but you're not because you're in doubt, because there's an opinion which says you shouldn't make it. which is why you should eat less than a kazayas. That way, according to all opinions, the baruch hachrayna.
Don't you need to do a new break for your Adama now?
No, why should you make any bread for Adama? Either it's covered by the Adama of Maror.
It's covered by the bread.
It's covered by the bread or by the Maror Adama, either way. The question is only bracha achrayna. According to opinion which says that the Hadama of Karpas does not go to the Hadama of Maror, you'd have to make a bracha achrayna after Karpas if you ate more than a kazayas. According to that opinion. But because it's another counter opinion, therefore we're in doubt, and therefore no bracha achrayna. Even though you mistake, because even when you mistakenly ate more than a kazayas. Right. But now I mistakenly ate more than a kazayas of lettuce at Karpas. So now I did my mitzvah of Maror by de facto.
Right.
So what do I do now? Says the Alter Rebbe. We come look on the third and last paragraph of halacha 22, and we'll stop here, and then tomorrow we'll go to the rest of these halachas. You follow?
Yeah.
So many details and so many ideas.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process. The main goal here is when we come to our Seder night, we should appreciate the importance of all these detailed instructions and how much thought goes into each of these things. I was actually thinking about it this morning, and I want to do the same thing for Sukkah. When we finish Arab Psachim, I want to do the same thing for Sukkah. Learn Masechta Sukkah with the Shulchan Aruch. We'll be proficient, at least in the overall, on the halachas of Sukkot and the halachas of Lol and Esrog. It'll be fantastic. That's going to be the next. Okay. I think that'll be next.
Yeah.
All right, so let's continue. So where are we? Again, you only have lettuce available to you. So what you should do is use it for karpas, the lettuce for karpas. Make hadama, make alachilas marar, and eat a less than a kazayas. In so doing, you took care of your hadama, because now if you eat less than a kazayas, everybody will agree no bracha chayna, but you took less than a kazayas. You took care of your bracha alachilas marar because you began the mitzvah right afterwards by eating less than a kazayas, and therefore when it comes to time of actual marar after matzah, eat a full kazayas for the mitzvah. But no bracha there because it goes back to your bracha that you made at the beginning when you started the mitzvah. Okay, now what happens if I accidentally ate a kazayas of this lettuce at karpas? So there is one opinion which says I should be making a bracha adam, that I should be making a bracha chayna b'nefashis. But I'm not because I'm in doubt because it's another opinion. Okay, but what about the mitzvah component? Because I ate a full kazayas, I actually did the mitzvah. I don't require intentionality because it's a rabbinic mitzvah, and therefore by the very fact that I ate by karpas a kazayas of marar, I finished. I did marar already. So do I now have to eat another marar at marar time after matzah? Seems I did the mitzvah already. Yeah, and I'm going to conclude the question, which you'll see on Shabbos why the question is a very big deal. But let's see it. The in the last.
Yeah. Just ask if when you say, "Am I required to do the mitzvah tomorrow?"
I did it already.
Does that mean the bracha?
No, not a bracha. Do I have to even eat it? Do I even have to eat a second kazayas? Right, okay, a marar at the marar time. Bracha for sure not, because I did the mitzvah. But do I have to eat another marar? Okay. Yeah, says the Rebbe. Said out the Rebbe. Even if I accidentally, I violated this rule, I should have eaten less than a kazayas, but I ate more than a kazayas of marar at the first dipping at karpas before Haggadah. Nonetheless, I should now go again and eat another olive-sized portion of marar after eating the matzah at the appropriate time. Why?
You should.
That's right. And this is from our Gemara, actually. It's actually straight from our Gemara that we learned. Right? Our Gemara doesn't make any mention of eating less than a kazayas. It said that if you have only lettuce, you should do it twice, right? It said that. The question is only where you make the bracha of alachilas marar. But the Gemara says you should eat it twice, even if it's a kazayas. Why? Because the first eating was only to raise curiosity, even though I technically did the mitzvah. It's in the second eating that I'm doing the actual mitzvah. Why? Because this is the proper way to do the mitzvah. Not to fulfill the mitzvah of marar before you've done matzah. The verse says you should eat it on matzah and marar, putting matzah before marar. So the proper way to do marar is after matzah. So even though technically I did the mitzvah at marar, you should still do it again because that's the proper way to do it.
Whether or not you ate a kazayas at the
whether or not you ate a kazayas the first time, even though maybe I did the marar technically earlier.
It's not the proper way to do it.
It's the proper way to do it.
Should be post matzah.
Should be post matzah. Never do it again. Now here's my question I'm going to leave with. We're going to learn on Shabbos about the mitzvah of charosis. Shabbos. Shabbos afternoon Garbel, this is what we're going to discuss. It's going to come in the Gemara later, but I want to go a little bit in depth on Shabbos afternoon about the mitzvah of charesis and why we don't make a bracha on charesis. According to one opinion, at least we learned in the Gemara already, the Mishnah, Rabbi Levi ben Tzadok, according to his opinion, it's an actual mitzvah to have charesis, rabbinic mitzvah. And why don't we make a bracha? Al achilas charesis. And we're going to learn that the reason is because it is from the Rebbe's Haggadah. I'm spoiling right at the end of the class, but this is how we're going to learn. Because the charesis mitzvah is an extension of the maror mitzvah. And if when you make a bracha on maror, it covers your mitzvah charesis because it's an extension mitzvah.
Is that because of the poison element?
Not okay. We'll discuss that on Shabbos. Whether it's because of the poison element or something else, we'll discuss that on Shabbos. That's going to be our whole discussion. What element does the charesis bring in terms of mitzvah? But at the end of the class, we'll see why. But the charesis is an extension of your maror, and that's why you're going to make the bracha on the charesis. Now, my question is, in this case, the guy already fulfilled the mitzvah on the basic level of maror without charesis, in salt water and vinegar, at karpas. And now he's eating maror a second time to do it in the proper way, after matzah. And now he's eating the charesis with it. Should he now make a bracha al achilas charesis? Or do I say that it's such an extension of maror that the same way I said al achilas maror when I ate the first one, because I began the mitzvah then, that beginning also begins my connection to charesis, even though my charesis is not going to be eaten way later, till way later. Or the link has been broken, because when I made al achilas maror, I dipped in salt water. And therefore the link when I began the mitzvah of maror, I didn't have charesis. So the link is broken. And now when I eat it a second time now, dipping in a charesis, maybe I should make a bracha on the charesis. This is going to be a question. This is a question that I hope to address Shabbos afternoon. I'll tell you what I'm thinking about it.
Maybe should have been dipped that first time.
No, we can't do the first time charesis. He said, well, first of all,
You can't. In a situation where the only thing you have is
you can't because what was the reason? No, he said he should do it in salt water and vinegar, and we're not doing the charesis. Why? Because again, we're of the view that there's no more issue of kappa. There's no more issue of the poison. The issue is only, or the worm. The only issue is mitzvah, and the mitzvah of charesis is when you do the mitzvah of maror properly after matzah.
Yeah, but
now you're doing the maror earlier.
In extenuating circumstances
right?
Like this.
So
You would
that's
think
part
that
of
maybe you should do it the first time.
that's part of that'll be part of my thinking in the question. Why didn't that have been instructed? Because you're using maror first time, might as well do charesis.
Yeah. This way you don't
Especially since the Rambam says to begin with, you're supposed to do charesis the first time. And that way you don't break that link between the maror and the charesis.
Yeah.
God willing, we'll address that on Shabbos. But yes, that's correct. It's part of my thinking of that.
Okay.
And that actually to conclude that the link is not broken. Because if the link were broken, he would have
conclude that it's not broken ultimately.
Because there's no instruction to make a bracha. There's no instruction to make a bracha here.
Right.
On the charesis. And B, there's no instruction to even dip it in the charesis the first time. I'm just suggesting. And if we must conclude that the link isn't broken, the question is why?
Yeah.
Especially since we're saying that the bracha has to be made to the beginning of the mitzvah. Right? So we'll come down to the Rebbe's Haggadah and how the Rebbe links the charesis to the karpas. Because the Rebbe doesn't just, how the Rebbe links the charesis to the maror. The Rebbe doesn't just say it's linked, citing to the Abudraham, but the Rebbe actually gives a rationale to how it's linked. And in that rationale, I think we'll have the resolution to this question. It's going to be Shabbos afternoon with Hashem. Okay, wonderful day. Tomorrow we'll continue the halachas and then get to the halachas for swallowing matzah and maror, which we looked about in the Gemara earlier.
Wow.